The astute amongst you may be wondering why a channel called David's Ships, a channel that is presumably focusing on the building of model ships, is building something that is decidedly not a ship. While it might seem like a strange choice of model to build in this channel, there is actually some method to this madness. Firstly, this is 1 in 350 scale, which is the scale in which I have built all of my other ships. This means that this model will fit in with my collection of ships. But that doesn't answer the question as to why on earth I have decided to build a railway gun. The answer is quite simple, really. It is because of the gun. To explain what I mean, I have removed one of the turrets from my Yamato model so that I can give you a little bit of a demonstration. The Yamato was the largest battleship ever constructed and also had the largest guns ever installed on a ship. Many people might think that because Yamato was so large and as a ship, it would naturally have the largest guns ever built. But this is in fact not the case. The largest guns ever built were found on railway guns. And of all the railway guns, the one that had the largest gun was a Schwerer Gustav. And that is the model that I want to build. Because it's not that the gun was just a little bit bigger than the battleships, it was considerably larger. How large? Well, this large. The Yamato's guns had a caliber of 460 millimeters, or 18.1 inches, while the Schwerer Gustav had a caliber of 800 millimeters, or 31 inches. The barrel length for the guns in the Yamato was a little over 21 meters, while the barrel length for the Schwerer Gustav was 32.5 meters. The Yamato had an effective range of 25 kilometers and was capable of firing a 1,460 kilogram AP shell, whereas the Schwerer Gustav had an effective range of 39 kilometers and was capable of firing a 7,100 kilogram AP shell. The magnitude of this gun is incredible, and that is why I have decided to build it, to show that the biggest guns ever built were not placed on ships, but were placed on railways. And while that might sound odd at first, it actually makes a lot of sense. Guns on battleships are primarily used to sink other battleships, while guns on railway cars are used to destroy fortresses. And the consequence of that becomes very clear in the rate of fire of these guns. The Schwerer Gustav was only capable of firing 1 round every half an hour, while each gun on the Yamato is capable of firing a round every 30 seconds. The reason why guns of this size were never put on ships becomes quite clear when you consider how difficult it would be to hit a moving target with a gun that you can only fire once every half an hour. Furthermore, it would be a total waste of the gun, because you don't need a gun this big to sink a ship, because a ship needs to float and move, which means it has limitations in its size and armor that it can carry. All you need to sink a ship is a shell that is big enough to defeat the armor on the ship, and that is nowhere near the size of guns of this caliber. A fairly common practice when designing a battleship is to build it with armor that is strong enough to protect it from its own caliber guns. Therefore, the largest guns that you would need to be able to reliably sink any battleship that ever existed would be in the 400 to 500 millimeter range. Certainly well short of 800 millimeters. So that is why you don't find guns this large on ships. It's because they would be unsuitable for the task. But where they are useful is for sieging fortresses. This gun took thousands of men and weeks to get into position, and then hundreds of men to fire it. But once it started firing, it was able to knock out a fortress in under 10 shells. This is the A sprue. It consists of the components to build one of the railway carriages. There's a B sprue, which is identical to the A sprue, which contains the parts to build the other railway carriage. This gun was installed upon a carriage that ran across 2 parallel tracks. The C sprue contains the aforementioned railway tracks, an operator's platform that sits just behind the breech of the gun. The D sprue contains miscellaneous details. The E sprue contains components that sit above the railway cars and beneath the gun's platform, and more details. with this being the final piece of photo etch that contains some structural components. In addition to the photo etch, there are some resin pieces. These are to complete the assembly of the gun. There are also 1mm and 1.5mm plastic rods. And lastly, 2 shells. Of course, you also provided an instruction manual, although it is only 4 pages. While looking at these parts, I get the impression that this kit is similar to an average detail upgrade kit. Furthermore, there aren't actually all that very many complicated pieces here. It also doesn't appear to be very repetitive. There are a few braces that need to be put in multiple times, but that doesn't look very complicated. And as for the size of the parts, they all actually are quite large. The smallest parts in this kit are A and B 24. However, they don't appear to be used. They don't appear anywhere in the manual. And even then, they aren't that small. I've certainly worked with smaller parts in other detail upgrade kits. My expectation of this kit is that it's going to be quite simple to build. Further contributing to its simplicity is that it only needs to be painted in one color. However, that color is not indicated in the guide, but from looking around a bit, I think it is appropriate to paint it in German grey. Over the next few videos, I'll be constructing this model. I'm not sure how many videos it'll actually take to build it, but I don't think it'll be all that many. In a sense, I'm building this model as an interlude between the Roma and whatever's going to be the next ship. It'll either be the HMS Hood or the USS Alabama, depending on if I receive the Hood in time. And I also feel like I need a little bit of a break from building rather complicated models like the Roma, which took a lot. So having something that is quite simple to build that I can finish in a short period of time is quite appealing to me at this moment. I also do genuinely think it's going to fit in quite nicely with my ships. And it is also quite a nice talking point to contrast the size of the guns in the battleships to the size of this railway gun. This will also be the first model that I've built in over a decade that isn't a ship, so that's also going to be quite interesting to do. Anyways, hope you join me for the build series. If you are interested in watching this build series, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Cheers.